Hello guys and welcome. So I'm back today. I've got a new camera. I've got a new phone because my other phone, my old phone, got dropped so many times it just couldn't handle any more cracks. So I had to get a new one. And this camera, I'm trying to get my head around. I'm absolutely useless with technology and I haven't got a clue what I'm doing in this. It's quite an advanced camera, although I don't know how this is going to come out. It's like got 2 or 3 settings on zoom, and right now I'm so zoomed in. But if I go to a different function, it comes whooshing out. I don't want that either. Look how long. Look how long. I'll work with it, see how we get on, and hopefully by my next video I'll have something a bit better sorted out. Today I'm filming my fragrance collection tag, and this is the tag that Jayne set up, and she has re-released it as a take 2, which is really fun. So it's 13 questions, and it's kind of a cool thing to do every now and again because, you know, our fragrance collections change, they develop, they evolve faster than you may think. So no doubt there'll be a take 3 and a take 4 of this as well, and it's quite cool to see where we're at in our fragrance game. So Joss re-released this tag about a month ago, and she tags pretty much everybody, as far as I know, in Fragcom. Thank you so much for tagging me to do this, Joss. So let's get cracking. The first question is, what is the newest fragrance in my collection? Most recent one that I actually acquired was one from Parfums de Marly, and it is Eau Jayne. I was able to come by a sample from the very lovely Kevin from the channel Mersey Scents. Kev is such a top gent, he really is, and he sent me some samples. I asked for certain fragrances and he sent me Eau Jayne as an extra. And Eau Jayne is the one that I it stole my heart a little bit, to be honest. And what it actually is a really delicious apple pie without any pastry. There's no apple in here, okay? I think it's the cinnamon content that is bringing this apple association, but it's so appley, like stewed apples, not a fresh crisp one that you're going to bite into off the tree. This is a stewed, warm, sweet apple. And what I like about this is that it's not a straight up gourmand. It's not a heavy, authentic food smelling scent. It is like the idea of stewed apples and cinnamon. I mean, imagine walking about 6 meters behind somebody that's carrying a bowl of freshly cooked, warm, sweet stewed apples that have got cinnamon in them. I get slight marzipan nuances with this. There's something making it a bit almond pasty, just slight. It's not strong, it's not sickly, it's warm and it's creamy. There's a bit of a woodiness. There's something in here keeping it quite fluid, and it's clean and it's aerated and it's just beautiful. I love this bottle. It feels lovely in the hand. It's incredibly heavy, like really heavy. I have not stopped wearing it. It's the one I've worn every day since, which is a good thing. It says a lot about how easy and versatile I'm finding it, and it's just an easy reach for these sort of colder days. So that is my newest fragrance by the House of Parfums de Marly. That is Eau Jayne. So the next question is, which is my oldest fragrance? Now I'm picking the fragrance that is the oldest that I still wear. I've got older ones I don't wear that I keep for reference. This is the oldest one that I still wear. This is Stella McCartney EDP. This is the oldest fragrance, but it's not the oldest bottle. I've had about 5 bottles of Stella EDP. The first fragrance I had that was a beautiful rose fragrance. So this is a fresh, warming rose. It's fresh and it's warm at the same time. There's amber giving you warmth here. I believe there's mandarin and also peony in here. It's a very velvety, beautiful rose fragrance with a freshness to it, more like an easy day wear kind of a rose scent. So it certainly still has its place and I do still love it. So that is Stella McCartney EDP. So next is, which is the most expensive fragrance in my collection? I can't remember the price of all of them, and all of the most expensive ones I've always got on a quite a big discount. But the one that I think I spent the most money on was one by Nichane, and that's 100 Silent Ways. Massive shout out to Marcus from the Instagram channel PDM_UK. He was able to sort me out with a really good deal on 100 Silent Ways. In fact, he gets a lot of fantastic fragrances at a cheaper price, so definitely check him out. But this is a beautiful interpretation of a tuberose, at least for my tastes. It's very rounded out, very soft, very sweet, and very creamy with the most beautiful vanilla, as well as other notes. You've got peach to give it a sweet bounce, and it's light, it's airy, it is sweet. It's such a happy fragrance, and I don't know how many tuberose fragrances I could really love, because I'm still not that gelled up with that flower. Gelled up? Still not a huge fan of tuberose, but this is the doorway to me appreciating a tuberose fragrance. There's beautiful vetiver in the base to really grab hold of everything. It's just an absolutely stunning one. I don't feel any shame in saying that this was my most expensive fragrance. So next is my most affordable. I do have quite a few all sitting around the sort of £20 to £25 bracket, and the one I think, well, the one I enjoy the most and I wear the most in that bracket is actually one by Elizabeth and James. And this is Amethyst, and this is a tobacco based fragrance, and it is such a beautiful one. Now, I said before, it reminds me of pencil shavings, but in the best way. There's obviously a lot more. I think there's honeysuckle, there's cedar, and there's spicy notes in here. Now, it's not particularly spicy, it's actually very soft. It's a very soft tobacco with a beautiful woody base. Honeysuckle, I guess, is giving it, fluffing out the edges of the tobacco. It's softening out, making it quite elevated. It's not a heavy scent. And for just a few notes, and for quite a cheap fragrance, it's actually beautifully blended, this one. It's not got any rough edges. It's so smooth and soft and actually quite cozy. And it's actually my favourite one from the Nirvana line. So that is Amethyst by Elizabeth and James. So next is what is my favourite easy reach. I've got so many fragrances that I do love. It's very hard to have one that I just keep reaching for. Okay, I don't like leaving ones out. And since I bought Eau Jayne, that is the one that I keep reaching for, to be honest. But I want to make it a bit more interesting and give you as many fragrances in this video as possible. And one that I only bought recently, just before Eau Jayne, but it was a fantastic deal on Notino. And I got it for, I think it was under 50 quid. It's by Van Cleef & Arpels, and it's Rouge. And I blind bought this on the recommendation of a good handful of people on both YouTube and on Instagram. And from what I've heard about it, it is a really beautiful, really velvety rose fragrance. And as you know, I'm all about the velvety rose fragrances. The only thing that I was worried about was a heavy dose of patchouli in here. And there is quite a big dose of patchouli, but for some reason it doesn't seem to bother me the way a lot of patchouli fragrances do. I will say it sits like many designer patchouli fragrances. I think they might also be lychee. It's very lychee smelling, which I do love, but I think there's just enough hit of fruits to compete with the patchouli. It's not overpowered with patchouli, so it's a patchouli that's, I think, slightly more fruit dominant than patchouli, which is just about saving it. But whatever that balance is, I'm finding myself reaching for it, and as you can see, that's quite a dent in what is quite a new fragrance, because it's just so easy to reach for. It's not too heavy. It's quite bright. I love the opening more than anything. The opening makes me want to just keep spraying it and spraying it, because I get this beautiful velvety rose, fruity velvety rose that does remind me of lychee. It reminds me of a few fragrances that I've probably already got. But I like that it's easy. It's not too heavy. It opens with a beautiful jammy rose, and then softens down into, like I say, this sort of more recognisable patchouli style scent that you probably have smelt in quite a few designer fragrances, but I really enjoy it. It's a lovely everyday scent. It's perfect for me, and it is a very easy reach. So that is Van Cleef & Arpels Rouge. So what is my favourite bottle design? That's question number 6. This is such a hard one to do because I love so many of my bottles. I've got as much love for a bottle design as I have for a scent. I mean, it's the bottle design that does attract us in the beginning and get us pulled in, and then we find out the scent is beautiful or not. So I've got a lot of bottles that I genuinely just love so much. But for some reason or other, there's one bottle that I enjoy reaching for. I enjoy picking it up, taking the lid off, and holding it in my hand more than many others. And that is the Ormande Jayne designed bottles. And I've got 3 of these now. This is the really big one. This is the 120ml. I've also got 2 50mls. This is how they look together. And there's also a 50ml, which you can get, which is adorable. I'll leave a picture if I can grab one off of Google. But it's much more squat, and it's just so adorable. It's the big one that I love. It's the big one that I reach for. Why do I love it so much? It feels lovely in the hand. It's such a simple, understated bottle, but also classic, classy, and very solid. It's got an apothecary. It's got a slight apothecary style, as well as the look of a whiskey flask, possibly. They look ornate and industrial at the same time, but they're just They appeal to me. I love them. I love these bottles, and I love how they all look together as well. They're just gorgeous. I don't know. It's not even a magnetic lid, but I just love the bottle design. But this is Tafe Rose, by the way. Sorry, Tafe Rose, Ormande Jayne. Beautiful rose fragrance. It's a very warm, but still light rose. Very warming. It's got notes of date. I think I would pair Tafe Rose scent in the same family as Stella. Stella is much more citrusy, it's much brighter, whereas Tafe is warmer and more mellow. So that is the beautiful bottle designs of Ormande Jayne. Okay, so what is the smallest bottle in my collection? Well, I've got a handful of minis. I'm hoping that a mini will qualify as a bottle. So I've got two from Delina Exclusif. I don't know which one's the smallest, but I'm going to include them both because they're just too adorable not to feature in a video. So it is this stunning, gorgeous, adorable, little whimsical little bottle. That is, of course, the EDT, and that is a violet, iris, ivy, woody, licorice fragrance. Not so heavy on the licorice. It's actually much more woody and airy and light. It's got such an ethereal, fairy-like quality to it, and I just treasure this little thing. It's absolutely adorable. And I've also got LD Delita as a mini as well. This little bottle is obviously shaped like a pebble and very sea-like, very washed up on the sea looking, but the scent is very far from being aquatic. In fact, it's a sort of a light gourmand. It's a powdery chocolate orange with cinnamon. I have the 50ml of this, and luckily the juice is still blue. These are hard to get hold of now, but you do find them occasionally on eBay, and this one's just starting to go brown actually. I hardly ever get it out of the box. I'm surprised it's going brown. And yeah, another little smallest bottle. So El Delita by Delina Exclusif. So if we've got the smallest bottles, and of course we've got to have our biggest bottles. So question 8, what is the biggest bottle in my collection? And this is the fragrance that I have repeated from my last, from the take 1 of the fragrance collection tag. It's by Maison Dior, or Privé, and it's Dior Amour. Very light, fizzy iris fragrance. I actually pulled for this a lot during the transition of winter and spring, that kind of transitional time of the year. It just seemed to suit this fragrance an awful lot. It's not a heavy floral, like I say, it's a fizzy iris. It's a very light, ethereal, fizzy iris. It's a touch green, touch effervescent. It's also got powdery notes and jasmine. It's not particularly powdery. You get that iris, and the jasmine's very light. It just gives it another dimension of floral. Got a bit of an ethereal quality to it. Like I say, it's quite fizzy, slightly powdery, but it's got an elevated kind of airiness, one that's so easy to wear and reach for. So that is Dior Amour, and that is my whopping 250ml bottle, making it the largest in my collection. Question number 9 is, what is the fragrance with the best scent memory association? I've got so many that do have an association. It's very easy to attach a fragrance to a moment, isn't it? I'm going to pick my most recent memory associated fragrance, and it is by Papillon Artisan Perfumes, and it is Tobacco Rose. Tobacco Rose is now the associated memory scent of visiting Hampton Court with my sister and my mum, and that was only about 2 months ago, in that window of non-lockdown that we had. And I chose Tobacco Rose to wear that day with quite a lot of intention. I wanted to find a nice rose to wear, really more the symbolic nature of Hampton Court, with it being the Tudor rose, but I didn't want a rose that was too modern, too safe, and too typical, if you like, you know, too sweet and jammy. I wanted something edgy, a bit of substance to it, a little bit of an old worldy feel to it, and this one really does capture so many things. This is actually my least sweet rose fragrance, and I love how edgy it is. Claire from Smurfy Girly really does summarise this so well when she says it's a savoury rose. It is so savoury. I believe there's a Hay Absolute in here. There's also, I think there's beeswax, aloe balsam. I believe there's moss. There's no actual tobacco, but the nuances bring you this tobacco, almost a damp tobacco feel, with this hay-like quality, and the moss just brings this beautiful earthiness to it. That earthy, grassy, even slightly bitter style makes you think of fresh tobacco, like Golden Virginia, which actually my dad used to smoke. So it's kind of another symbolic aspect of this fragrance. There's a beautiful rose in here, giving that aspect of a romantic opulence, and it was the perfect pairing to wear around Hampton Court, which is medieval, obviously has its regal status, but this rich history, and it was just it was just a perfect thing to wear. So this has a very strong association of Hampton Court, which of course represents quite a good, strong memory association. So that is Tobacco Rose by Papillon Artisan Perfume. Question number 10, which fragrance is worth the hype? I've got a fair few fragrances that I think are quite hyped up and are very worthy of the hype, but one particular seems to have been hyped up more this year than last year. I think it's very worthy of its hype actually, and for its designer status it makes it affordable, giving it even more appeal than just the scent. So it is by Jean Paul Gaultier and it is La Belle. I bought La Belle, I think it was almost exactly a year to the day. I can't quite remember, but I do have a full review of La Belle, and I think it was, yeah, about roughly a year ago. It's the only Jean Paul that I really do enjoy. I know a lot of them are very popular. It's pear, it's vanilla, and we'll say vetiver, I believe. I enjoy the sweetness. I enjoy the composition of those notes. I'm sure there isn't a lot more notes, but they're the 3 notes that everyone's familiar with. Very bright, very happy, and incredibly addictive gourmand-ish scent. It reminds me of pear crumble and custard. Not a pear pie, definitely a crumble. Because it's not so heavy and dense, but it's still warm. It's still got something warm and pudding-like about it. It still has Jean Paul Gaultier perfume running through it, and I find it very addictive. It's very cozy, it's very sexy. I think the bottle is absolutely stunning. It's really a standout bottle. They all are in the Jean Paul, but this one particularly with the roses around the neck. I think the bodice goes in slightly more of a vampish direction, which I really enjoy. I think La Belle is beautiful, very addictive, and definitely worthy of the attention that it's getting. So, La Belle by Jean Paul Gaultier. So question number 11 is, what isn't worth the hype? And I think this question is difficult because it's all down to preference, isn't it? And our expectations of fragrance and what we enjoy. There's so many actually that are hyped that I don't enjoy. It doesn't mean they're a bad fragrance. I just don't personally love them. One of the most hyped fragrances, I think, is Mon Guerlain by Guerlain. I don't understand why everyone loves it. Personally, it's just such a, I don't know, boring. I find it very boring. I don't like the lavender mixed with vanilla style. I don't know, I find that combination of vanilla and lavender a little suffocating, a little deadpan though as well, a little boring. And it's the same with Lavandas Trianon from the House of Lancôme. It's a very similar style of fragrance. Lactonic, that's the word. I don't like lactonic fragrances particularly, not always, but generally I don't seem to enjoy them. That is a preference thing. People do love that fragrance, it just isn't my style of scent, and I don't see the appeal. So question 12, what is my favourite fragrance from my favourite house? I don't know if I want to say I've got a favourite house because I've got so many lovely fragrances from so many wonderful houses, but the house I seem to have the most fragrances from is Parfums de Marly. It's worked out that way. It wouldn't be a video for me if I didn't include Delina. In fact, I'm going to include Delina and Delina Exclusif because I seem to be loving them very equally, and I feel like I'm cheating on Delina by doing that, but they're both very beautiful. This is where people that I've now insulted about Mon Guerlain can come back at me and say, well, you know what, these are not worth the hype, and that's absolutely fine. And Delina has been, you know, basking in its spotlight for about 2 years now, and it still gets so much love. And I don't think I will ever get bored of it. I mean, I hope not anyway, because to me it's still the most special, romantic and kind of queen of the fragrances. There's a lot of fragrances now that have been either inspired by or cloned from Delina. They both smell pink, plush and opulent. Delina Original has that tart, fruity burst of rhubarb. It is much brighter, it is much more, I would say, day wear appropriate. It's such a happy but opulent, romantic wedding style fragrance. If you eliminate the tart rhubarb and the lychee, the bright lychee, keep that plush rose, plush peony, the beautiful powdery tonka, and then replace it with a little bit of oud. I think there's more vanilla. Crank up the tonka a bit more. You then have Delina Exclusif, which is more powdery, it's fluffier, it's denser, it's richer. I think it's more evening appropriate. It has a sort of more biscuity style, still equally as sweet, very luxurious, very velvety, both very opulent. And they are the standout, and both fare equally in being my favourite fragrance from my favourite house. There you go, Delina Exclusif, Parfums de Marly. So finally we arrive at question 13. We made it all the way through. What is my most used fragrance? Well, apparently the fluid level has spoken, and it is Roses Vanille by Mancera. And this is not just from my use. I have dished out a few decants, but it is, either way you look at it, it's the most used, and I have reached for this an awful lot this year. I find it addictive in the same way as La Belle and Delina Exclusif. It has something dense and biscuity and warming and delicious. It's such a heavy, thick scent, and it's not the sort of thing I would normally pull for that easily, but I have been. I think it's a happy scent. It's a very joyful, bright. There's this eternal density of biscuitiness and sweetness with tons of jammy rose. And with that Mancera synthetic perfume that runs through it, it doesn't get too dense or cloying for me. I'm just noticing for the first time actually that if you can sniff between the thick, bulging masses of jam and biscuitiness in this fragrance, there's a thread of tobacco. Like, well, not in the notes, but I'm getting the very slight hint of something tobacco-y, just bringing a slightly fuzzy quality to it. Whatever it is, it's very delicious, and it is my most used fragrance in my entire collection. So that is Roses Vanille by Mancera. So that completes my fragrance collection tag take 2. Thanks again for Josh for restarting this tag, and I hope you enjoyed the video. That is all from me, guys. Take care, over and out.